Everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another card video. In this video, I am showing you a couple items of the Caterpillar Designs new release called Forever 13. I'm using the Zest Bouquet stamp set along with the coordinating dies and Petal Connection cover plate. So the Petal Connection cover plate, it doesn't, it kind of pierces little pattern, which I found to be pretty cool for and very unique. So I'm gonna use it for my background. So I had a piece of 4¼ by 5½ of premium white cardstock from Caterpillar Designs, and I ran it through my die cutting machine. And I had few spots of those little pierced dots left in, so I'm using my piercing tool to poke those out. So I have nice background. I'm a little perfectionist, so I could not let go of those being in there. Next, I'm using one of the Caterpillar Designs premium cardstock note cards. It's like 5½ by 8½, and it's scored in half, so it's great for card bases. So let's move on. Next, what we'll do, we'll stamp the Zest Bouquet, like the large image of the lemons, and I'm stamping on two cantilever watercolor paper. The watercolor paper is available in the Caterpillar Designs store, and I'm stamping with Midnight ink. The Midnight ink is waterproof as well. It's alcohol marker friendly. So since I'm stamping on watercolor paper, we're gonna do some watercoloring. And for my watercoloring, I'll be using my ink pads. So before we move on to the watercoloring, since I stamped this couple of times using my Misty tool, I'm just heat setting it just to make sure that it's dry before I start coloring and applying some water to it. So I'm here working on a glass mat, and I just scribble, kind of smoosh my Limoncello ink pad directly onto my glass mat, and I'm picking up the color using my aqua painter or watercolor brush. Then I'm using my paper towel to remove some of the ink from the tip of the brush, so I have nice gradient of color when I'm coloring from the darkest to the lightest spot. So the center of the lemons, like where the stem connects to the fruit, I want it to be darkest, so I start coloring from there, and as I go down to the tip of the lemon, that color fades out. And what is good about the Caterpillar Designs inks, that when they dry, they're very rich, and when they dry, it's still the color is nice and bright and very radiant, so it doesn't fade off or get kind of dull as it dries. So I colored the lemons. Next, I'm going to color the flowers. I'm using a little bit diluted limoncello ink. I applied some little bit more water. So the flowers are a little bit paler yellow. Also, you can use rinkers to do the same technique. And with the rinkers, the good thing is that you can mix those to get different shades of different colors or completely new color. Next, I kind of smooshed my lime Rickey ink, and I'm coloring the leaves and the stem using the lime Rickey. Again, I'm starting from the base of the leaf, and where kind of goes behind the lemons. I want those areas to be darkest, so I'm starting from there and then moving towards the tip of the leaf. Next, I'm coloring the stems, and we're almost done here. So you can see I used only 2 colors, and I got a nice gradation of color. Now we're going to move to die cutting the image. I'm using the coordinating die. I'm going to secure it using some washi tape and run it through my die cutting machine. So by magic of YouTube, I've already die cut that, and now we can kind of position it onto our card front, onto the die cut panel. See where we want it to be, and I want it to do it on the top left side. So now we're missing a sentiment, so I decided to use the Squeeze the Day. I'm going to stamp on black cardstock that I have in my stash, and I'm going to stamp with Versamark ink and then emboss in white embossing powder. again, I'm using my Misty tool. I'm stamping a couple times to make sure that I have nice coverage so that embossing powder sticks nicely to the cardstock. So since I use a lot of white cardstock, I transferred all my white embossing powder. I do use a lot of white cardstock too, but also use a lot of white embossing powder. So I transferred all my embossing powder into a container. And here, so may apply again. Accidentally, I flicked off a lot of that embossing powder before I heat set it, so I reapplied a little bit more and then heat set it. Now we can move on to assembling the card, and I'm using liquid adhesive to adhere that die cut panel, the petal connection panel onto my card base. I'm just applying adhesive where there are no the pierced dots. I'm gonna adhere it to the note card, and I put the large Catherine Puller Designs acrylic block on top to make sure that that dries flat. Next I'm adding some foam tape on back of my sentiment, and I'm adding foam squares on the Zest Bundle image. I wanted to add more dimension, or you can adhere those flat if you like. I always like to add dimension to my cards using fun foam or foam squares or foam tape. So I'm just removing the backing here. I'm adding that image on the top left corner, and I just remove the excess. Next, I'm adhering the sentiment, and I'm using my T ruler to make sure that's parallel to the bottom of my card, so the sentiment is nice and straight. And to finish my card, I decided to add few sequins from the Boston mix, which are basically green sequins. I'm just using the colors that kind of coordinating with how I colored my image. The different shades of green in the pack, and they have little beads and different sizes of sequins too. So I'm just adding those using some very strong liquid adhesive, and that will finish our card. So here's a little close-up of the card. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to click that subscribe now button if you like this video, so you're notified when I have new videos uploaded. Also, don't forget to visit my blog for more ideas and inspirations. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye!